Hello, everyone, and welcome in. We're going to let people get into our session, and the numbers are climbing, and this is all very, very exciting. Well, thank you all so much for being here on this beautiful, early winter afternoon. We're coming to you from across the country. I am Rachel Davison-Humphreys, Director of Outreach at the Bill of Rights Institute, and welcome to one of our Civic Conversation Town Hall meetings. We did a series of these in the summer. We're planning on doing them pretty much monthly as we go throughout the school year to support you and the things you need to do. BRI is here to help. We teach civics. It's what we do. And we know that it's hard work and we want to support you in every way we can. So we wanted to take this time to make sure that you knew about an amazing resource that we have. One that will help you plan your whole year of APUSH in a day, or at least that's the claim we're trying to make. Mary, my friend and colleague here, is going to walk us through it. Mary, take it away. Introduce yourself and we can let everybody know what this is about. Before actually I do that, just to remind you, put your questions. There's a Q&A in the box there, but you can also just chat with each other. So the chat is open, the Q&A is open. We'd love to hear, what are your concerns? What do you need? As Mary's going through her presentation, she's more than happy to stop. So use the chat and the Q&A, introduce yourselves. We'd love to see where you're coming from. So Mary, take it away.
Okay, thanks, Rachel, and hi, everybody. I'm so glad to be with you today. I'm happy 80th anniversary of Pearl Harbor. Like Rachel said, I work on the content team here at the Bill of Rights Institute. I've been here about 4 years, and prior to that, I was in the classroom for 8 years. And one July, I believe it was my second or third year teaching, I can't remember which, I was at the school in the summer doing some curriculum work with other teachers, and my principal cornered me in the library and said, "You're teaching AP in September." And I remember thinking, oh my God. And I will say, this resource that I'm going to share with you, if I had had this resource that first year, it would have been a godsend. So it is, I think it's just a phenomenal resource, whether you're just starting out, whether you're a seasoned veteran, there is something in it for you that can make your AP or regular US history classroom stronger and more engaging. So I'm really excited to talk about it with you. I'm going to talk a little bit about sort of an overview of what it is, where you can find it, and then walk you through what it looks like on our website, the Bill of Rights Institute website, mybri.org, and also on our partners website, OpenStacks. It's the same in both places. It's got a little different features in both places, but it's completely free online. So without further ado, let's jump in. I'm just going to, again, give you a little overview of what this resource is. What's so cool about it. So life, liberty, oops, I'm sorry, went away on me here. Well, I don't know why it's doing that. So I will just show you, I'll just go to our website and talk to you there. So I am showing you our homepage on the BRI website for Life, Liberty, and the Pursuit of Happiness. It's our free online digital textbook. We developed this in partnership with OpenStacks, which is an educational nonprofit publisher based out of Rice University in Texas. It's completely free. It's completely online. We are one of the 21 example textbooks for AP US history that's listed on the College Board website. So that's really exciting. We have the official blessing of the College Board in this. And even if you do not teach AP US history, like I said before, I think there's something in there that's usable for any classroom, so middle school included. So what's different about our resource, I think, is, and the only resource for the College Board example textbook, is that we have a wealth of authors. So we have all of our editors here, and we have 96 authors that contributed to this textbook. And the whole point of this is, history is an argument, and there's so many different voices involved in telling history that we really wanted students to understand. It's not just what the textbook says and that one author or that handful of authors, but it's really all these different voices that make up, this story of the American experiment. So that's one really cool thing that I'm excited to share with you. And I'll get out of here. Table of contents. So basically, again, we follow the AP US history timeline. So we start with pre-Columbian America and go up to the present day. And by present day, it's really Obama administration. And it's organized a little bit differently than a traditional textbook. So we have 16 chapters. Each chapter has an introductory essay. That's sort of your traditional textbook that paints in broad brushstrokes and sets the scene for a time period. But I think what's really cool and what makes ours different is we have these things called narratives, which are really sort of bite-sized stories that help students sort of grasp the more compelling, like digestible stories of the time period. So a really great entry point into a period into the past. And we're all about stories and narrative here at the Bill of Rights Institute. And I don't know about you guys, but my students were often taking multiple AP classes or challenging classes. So rather than saying, here's 300 pages that you need to read, these narratives are generally 3 to 5 pages, 1,500 words. They're much smaller, but you can still really sink your teeth into them and have a conversation about the past. So that sort of sets us apart. The point counterpoints are something that we're really excited about. It's basically taking a compelling question, so was the Civil War fought over slavery? And then two historians sort of debate that question. And the whole point there, again, is to show students that history is an argument, and historians are debating these questions even in the present day. And I'm going to show these to you in just a second. I just want to kind of go through the highlights of what we have here. We have over 150 primary source activities. So these are images, these are videos, these are text, there's questions accompanying them. They're so fantastic. I mean, if nothing else, you got to use it for the primary sources. And I think we have some lesson plans. They're really plug and play. So you open it up and it opens in a Google document. You can print it, you could save it, you can post it to your school, your class website. And it's really like, it's a DBQ, here are the documents, here are the questions, you can sort of run with it. And in addition to all of this, we have over 2,600 questions that were written and reviewed by US history teachers accompanying all of this material. So everything from basic multiple choice questions, making sure they got the main ideas, like what was the Free Soil Party, to open-ended written response questions, like evaluate the significance of John Brown's raid on Harper's Ferry. And then we also have AP style questions, so multiple choice questions that are attached to a stimulus, so whether that's a picture or a piece of text, for students to practice those skills to prepare for the AP exam. So there's a lot of stuff in this resource. And I'll stop there for a second and see if there are any questions before I go in and show you what all these resources look like on the BRI website.
So there was a question that came into the QA, and that comes from Elaine. And Elaine is saying, there's just so much to cover. What are the zinger documents that she needs to do? She loves BRI's resources, but even something like this, there's just so much. She's asking for help picking and choosing. And I'm wondering if you could kind of think about that as you kind of think about the overview. What is our advice?
Sure. So Elaine, you're back. So what I'm going to show you is we have developed for this resource a pacing and planning guide. So there's so much in here. What we basically did was we mapped out a suggested year in an AP classroom. So these specific documents, these specific essays that we would suggest you could use in your classroom. Excuse me one second. And I'm going to show that to you in just a second. Again, that's available on our website. And I'll put
the link to it in the chat. I already put the link to this main page. So make sure if you haven't already signed up for the resource so that you can get all this straight to your email and get some cool new posters that we designed. Make sure that you sign up on the link I put in the chat. I'll put it in again, and then I'll put the link to the pacing guide, Mary, right now.
Okay, perfect. So I'm just going to go in. I'm going to go into chapter 8. So generally speaking, around this time period, I was in Civil War Reconstruction in my classroom. So I'm going into that section right now. So you can see we have an introductory essay. So this is sort of the big picture, what's going on. And then you have smaller stories. So whether it's just about the Battle of Antietam or the draft riots or the 54th Massachusetts. So again, these are pretty small essays that you can to assign one of these for homework, it's so easy, especially the AP level, that there's no reason why students couldn't complete these. And then you have, again, at the end, review questions. So these are sort of, did they pull out main ideas? So you can use these if it fits, in your classroom. Free response questions, so open-ended questions to get that writing and argumentation practice in, and then AP practice questions. So again, questions that refer to some sort of primary source stimulus. So this is an example of one of our narratives, and I will show you, here we go. Here is a point counterpoint. So this is the question, and then two scholars are going to debate this question. So we tell you who they are. This is I would say this is a zinger document. I think the point counterpoints are so fascinating. So you have sort of the summary of what are they actually debating, and then you have the two claims next to each other. And for all of these point counterpoints, I'm going to go to the bottom here. We've given you a graphic organizer, and I believe I have this open. I do have it open in another window. So this is another point counterpoint about Reconstruction, and did African Americans, was it a beneficial time for them or not? And basically a way for students to sort of pull out the main ideas and think about, did they support each other in any way? Did they, are they just completely in left field? And to have students think about the differing opinions and sort of have a conversation in the classroom about it. So I think the point counterpoints are one of my favorite things about this. And they're really, good questions like, was it the right decision to drop the atomic bomb? Or we have one on affirmative action. We have one on, privacy and the war on terror. We have all sorts of really compelling questions. And I think later we can show you a list of our point counterpoint topics, so you can take a look at those in that we have available online to you. And what else can I show you really quickly?
I dropped that link to the pacing, scope, and sequence guide into the chat so you guys can all see it. It is in Microsoft Sway, but there are Word links, so you can just download them and you don't have to use the fancy WYSIWYG. The links are right below. So someone's asking, where are the links on the Sway? Mary, if you could pull up the Sway real quick and show them. It is broken out by sequence. So if you look, Mary has it up on her screen for period 5. So if you scroll down a little bit, right under the pretty image, there's a link section right there where you can download the pacing guide.
Mm-hmm. So I'll go ahead and talk a little bit about the pacing guide, since I think this is where you're planning your year, right? And you can do it in a day. So let me just jump to the good part. So I have it open in a Word version. In Word, it's going to open as a Google document, but we've given you just sort of, again, so we base this on the idea that it's a 1-year survey class. It's starting right before Labor Day. We accounted for a Thanksgiving break, a winter break around the Christmas holiday. So we tried to build in those days. We built in stretch days, so you run over or you have to make something up, you have a snow day, whatever it may be, and we built in review days. So this is sort of at a glance a framing question for that day. And then if you come down, we've given you a suggestion for what you could actually do on that day to address that framing question. So again, this is the period we're dealing with, this lead up to the Civil War. So we can see, we suggested that students ahead of time read and annotate the "To Go to War with Mexico" reading. And again, this is about 1,500 words. So it's not a huge lift to ask students to do this. And then in class, you can look at these two primary sources and discuss, how does this relate to the causes and the effects of the Mexican-American War. So this pretty much lays it out for you. Like this could be your year. And again, going back to teacher Mary that was cornered by her principal those years ago, if I had something like this, oh my gosh, it would have been such a godsend. It's still your first year teaching AP, of course, is still a baptism by fire, but this makes it so much easier. And I think if you are a veteran, again, those primary sources, 152 primary sources, there's a lot of stuff to pick and choose from here that you can drop into your existing class. So I think that's part of the fun of teaching, right, is curating and tinkering and trying new things out in your classroom. So I will stop here for a second and check in and see if there are any other questions I can answer now,
I wanna jump in and apologize to everyone. I've been sending them only to the host and panelists. I've been like furiously typing, and it's only been going to the host and panelists. So it's coming up, but it wasn't going to anybody. So I'm gonna send those out right now. Again, my sincere apologies. Let me send them out right now. Here you go. Make sure that you can get them. Here's the pacing and sequencing, especially for Elaine. And here is the link to the whole resource. And again, my sincere apologies. That was entirely on me. But there you go.
Right.
So everyone should be able to see it now and access it. And you can go sign up on that main page to make sure that these are coming to your email too.
And again, we've organized it by these AP time periods, but again, I think it works in a non-AP classroom as well, because you're probably covering, the founding of the Constitution in any American history class, not just an AP class. So you have it in the SWAY version, and then each version is, as we said, this will open up into a Google version for you.
So Mary, something that just came up that I don't think we actually mentioned at the top of this this webinar is that everything the Bill of Rights Institute does is completely free for teachers. So this is actually a free digital textbook. If you go to the OpenStacks website and you want to use the version on the tutor platform on OpenStacks, it is entirely free for you and your students. That's something we negotiated. Usually OpenStacks requires that students pay $10 for access per student. BRI, if you go through BRI and you access Life, Liberty, and the Pursuit of Happiness, it is entirely free for you and your students. We also recognize that adding another platform is a barrier. So all of the Life, Liberty, and the Pursuit of Happiness resources, all 400 different components are freely available on our website, and we've organized them into playlists that you can easily scroll through and see. All of those are linked on our main page that I put in the chat. But Mary will talk about that in a little bit. So in answer to your question, everything's free for you, for teachers, because BRI is donor supported. We're very thankful to our donors who allow us to do that. And you can access it either through OpenStacks or through the Bill of Rights Institute website.
Yeah, absolutely. And I will show you, so here's an example of primary source cartoon. So again, this is something I think you could use in a lot of different classrooms. I always found visuals to be effective across levels, but we always have an introduction to a primary source. So it sort of sets the scene for students, so that it gives them some context. And then they have the actual image themselves, and then they have questions to answer for each primary source. So again, there's 152 of these across the resource. I have lots of favorites here. Thomas Nass has some really good cartoons. We have some of his cartoons on Boss Tweed in the Gilded Age. Those are really great ones too. So there's a lot of resources here on the BR to help you with your US history class. I think the next thing I wanted to show you is, what does this look like on the OpenStacks side? So like Rachel said, this was a partnership between the Bill of Rights Institute and OpenStacks. All of the content is completely free on both sites. On the BRI site, you just create an account. If you want to save to my library, if you like this one, you want to keep track of it, you can do that very easily. With OpenStacks, you have to create an account, and you have to enroll students, which can be a barrier for some who have to approve that through their district or something like that. But it's the same content. There's just some additional features. So I'm going to go ahead and walk you through those right now. So I already have an account with OpenStacks, and I already have this course set up. So it's Life, Liberty, and the Pursuit of Happiness. This is my ultimate guide to US history. And again, it looks a little bit different on the OpenStacks side. My landing page as the teacher is a calendar. So again, the calendar, the thinking behind this is the calendar is really the window into the teacher's classroom. So everything that I have put on the calendar here goes back to that pacing guide for AP time period 5. So this lead up to the Civil War, if you're not an AP teacher, right? So these are the suggested activities, when we're going to do them, plotted out on a calendar for my classroom. And I'll go back to that in just a second. If I click browse the book up here, this is basically the electronic version of thumbing through the pages. Again, it's the exact same content that you would find on BRI's site. One of the additional bells and whistles here on the OpenStacks side is that you can highlight and make annotations as you are reading, as your students are reading. And if you click on my highlights, it will show you everything that you have noted in the book. So that's something they could print or they could copy to, something to help them study. So I think that's a neat feature. Just like on the BRI side, if you scroll to the very bottom of whatever reading it is, you have those review questions, you have those free response questions, and you have the AP practice questions. So this is exactly the same thing that you would see on BRI's side if enrolling students in an online textbook is a barrier for you in some way. I am going to go back to my dashboard here. The question library, this is pretty amazing. So basically, all of those questions, over 2,600 questions that were written for the content in this resource by APUS history teachers, they're all in this question bank. So all these questions are on the BRI site too. What this question library enables you to do is sort of pick and choose which questions you want fed to your students. So as it is right now, you cannot actually edit the questions, but it gives you, okay, I don't want my students to answer this question, but I do, oh, you can't edit, I'm sorry, that's a new feature. But it gives you some more choice in how you want students to answer the questions. If you click on details, this is the sort of detail that went into creating these questions for you guys. We tag them with the Bloom's level and with the historical thinking and reasoning processes that are important to the AP framework. Again, if you're not teaching AP, these are skills that any student of history needs, like how to create an argument, thinking critically about sources. So don't be scared by that jargon if you're not. Like, what is a reasoning? I mean, it's specific to the framework, but it's really historical thinking in general. So those are all of the questions in the library that you can preview. And I'll go back, dashboard, go back to my dashboard. And then it's really, if I want to add something to my calendar, if I want to add a reading, I just click on add a reading. I can give it a name. I can give it, Lincoln's election. And then I can say, do I want it to go to all of my classes? When does it need to be due? When do I want it to actually show up on the calendar? And then I can actually just go in and select. So this would be way much further down. Again, this just shows you how much content is in this textbook. The election of Lincoln is up here somewhere, the election of 1860. And I can assign that to my students and publish it, and it will show up Christmas Eve. It will show up for the students there. And then to add questions. So in the add homework. Add homework in OpenStacks means adding questions. So this means, I'll do Lincoln's election again. Again, I can set the dates. I can actually go through, and if I find Lincoln or the election of 1860, I can decide what questions I want my students to answer. So I want them to be able to answer this question. I want them to answer this question. I don't want them to answer this question, and so on and so forth. And then I can decide how many points I want to assign to it and publish it for the students. You can add an external assignment. So that could just be, watch BRI's homework help video on Dred Scott v. Stanford, and then you just put the link here. Look at that, Dred Scott v. Stanford, and publish it for students. You can add an event, so you can say, it's my birthday, bring me gift cards. You can say, I think this counter is really pretty easy to use and set up for your students. To view as a student, so what does this look like on the student side? They basically get a to-do list. So these are all the things that they need to do, and it will tell them if they started it or not. And as they are reading something, they'll be fed questions, okay? And so they might get this little free response box that pops up, which is basically to try to help them think of what the answer is before they're presented with options. And then if they don't remember, it tells them it's in this. So go back here, read it, find the answer. So there's all these little tools in here to help students figure out, what are they missing as they're reading. And I will I'll go back to my dashboard. Again, students can browse the book. As they start answering more and more questions, this performance forecast box over here will tell them, okay, you're answering questions pretty well when it comes to sectionalism, but you're not doing so well with, migration in this time period. So they can actually see where their weak spots are. And if I go back to this teacher view, I can see, I don't have any students enrolled in this class, but I can see at a glance, like, oh, Johnny's not doing well with this topic. Jane is doing well with this topic. And that can help you think about, okay, when they come in tomorrow, when I see them on Zoom tomorrow, I can review the Fugitive Slave Act of 1850 because they're not quite getting it.
So, we would love to hear, what topics do you struggle with the most? So in the chat right now, we'd love to know kind of when you're going through your year, what are some sticky ones? What are some ones where the students are really struggling? Because we'll have a few minutes at the end where maybe we can walk through and brainstorm some solutions or some resources for those really sticky, challenging APUSH topics. So just put them in the chat and we'll get to them in a little bit.
I'll go ahead and show you a lesson, which I don't think I've shown you, or let me go back to, so if you are enrolling students in your course, it's really pretty easy to do. Sorry, I got the wrong thing here. Course settings. So basically you can give student a link, say, click on this link and they'll be enrolled in my class. You can integrate with some learning management systems. So there is that option as well. So I think it's really easy to have students sign up to get into the OpenStacks class. I know I had to hand type in all 150 some of my students into our online textbook. You don't have to do that with this. We've really made it very easy for you. And again, the calendar is really easy to use. So basically, again, I took that pacing guide. So this is time period 5. This is the pretty version, the Google version, and I just plugged it right into the calendar. So that is your APUSH in a year. So I think this is a great document. Again, there are so many ways to teach these different topics. This is one suggestion. So if there is a sticky part or a sticky subject that you have, this could be a resource for you to think about, okay, what are some things that I could use to help my students with this particular topic or this time period in history? Trying to think, a lesson. I didn't show you a lesson. Let me show you a lesson to sort of demonstrate how much of a plug and play we tried to make this for you. I will use, okay, so I'm trying to stay in this Civil War Reconstruction era. You can see here are some of our primary sources. Which
is great, because Jared is saying Reconstruction is one of the hardest periods for him.
Reconstruction, such good stuff. So we have these political cartoons on Reconstruction. I showed you these on the BRI site, but I think these basically say it all, right? You have sort of the hope and the promise of Reconstruction, right? Passed right after the 14th Amendment, where every birthright citizenship, Uncle Sam carving this turkey here, and you have Lincoln, and you have Grant, and you have Washington, and you have everybody here. You have, the freedmen, you have immigrants, you have everyone at the Thanksgiving table, and then the reality of what the South becomes at the end of Reconstruction. I think there's a lot to unpack here. So this is one thing I think that's really interesting. We have the emergence of Black Codes, DBQ, which kind of shows you over time how Jim Crow starts to emerge.
Wait, Mary, can you hang on to that for a second? So talk about the DBQs for a sec, because you haven't mentioned those yet.
Okay.
There are about, I think it's about 20 DBQs or mini DBQs in this resource to help you. So the Summers, you were asking about Dred Scott, and Elaine is like, oh yeah, the DBQs, those are always a challenge. Not only do we have the DBQs in the LPH platform, but BRI has about 50 free DBQs on our website. I'm going to put the playlist for just DBQs up on the in the chat.
Right. So like we have, like Rachel said, there's a lot of DBQs across the resource. So what we have done with these is we've given, again, it opens as a Google Doc. So you can use it as is, or you could just say, I don't want this document and that document. You can cut and paste. We've given you the source link. So if you want to include more or less, that option is available to you. We've given questions for each document. So this differs from what students actually see on a DBQ when they take the AP exam. So it's additional scaffolding that you can use or disregard as best suits your classroom. And then, you know, again, the question again at the end. So that's just one example of some of the DBQs in here. I mean, here's another one on Lincoln's rhetoric. So this is, again, this is something I wish I could have always spent more time on in my classroom, but we have all these great excerpts from some of his famous speeches, and these are taking a second to load, but it's the same idea. It will open as a document packet. You've got the source link, you've got a little introduction. You can pick and choose what you would like to use in your classroom. And these look exactly the same. If you open them up on the BRI website, it would open up as a Google document like this.
So Linda asked the question about whether or not we're integrated with Canva. The answer is no, but all of our resources have a dedicated URL, and all of the resources that are through the LLPH are actually Google Docs. So you can just rip those and upload them or link directly to them. So you can share them to yourselves or link directly to them. So anything from the Life, Liberty, and Pursuit of Happiness resource is a Google Doc on our page. So when you go into our page and you click on it to like see the resource, it'll be a Google Doc. It'll also be, a lot of those sources will also be listed as text on the page. But if you click download, it'll actually take you to a Google Doc. So that's something you should know that isn't always clear on the site, is that when you click download on any LLPH resource, it'll take you to a Google Doc that you can then upload. So that'll make that easy. And then each resource page also has a dedicated URL that you can link students directly to.
I want to touch on the essay activities. I didn't touch on these. So these are every unit. So there's 16 chapters, 8 units is how we organize this text. Every unit has a final essay activity. So it starts by just writing a thesis. And then at the end, the idea is that they would write a full essay in the style of an AP essay, which that's a whole other conversation. That's a whole other webinar on the AP style of writing. Is that good writing? Is it not? We're not touching that. But that, again, it's going to open up as a Google Doc, and these are built into that pacing guide as well. So all of our units end with an assessment day. So whether that's pulling questions from that question library, whether it's assigning an essay like this, we've given a rubric, again, a suggestion. It's modeled after the AP style rubric, and a reflection, again, to sort of help students, that scaffolding of how they're writing, what they need to work on. Are they writing a clear thesis? Do they need to work on adding more evidence? So the handouts, and again, it's formatted like they would see one on the AP exam, just to get them used to, this is what they're going to see, just, you know, to get them in the zone for doing that. Trying to see if I can think of anything else I'd like to, I'll go up into the present day, because I know the present day always got short shrift in my classroom because you just run out of time, right? Time is, whew. But I think we have some really cool point counterpoints in this section. Again, I'm on the OpenStacks side, but it's all the exact same content on the BRI site. So does the threat of terrorism justify increased surveillance? Again, so you have 2 historians that are arguing that question, and that will link to that graphic organizer at the bottom here to help them think about pulling out the main ideas and comparing those. That's gonna take a minute to load, but it looks exactly like the other ones. It just changes the question in the middle. Give it another second here. Sorry surveillance. Was the invasion of Iraq justified? Is affirmative action justified? And so forth. So we've got quite a few, I think, really good ones for the modern era. So if you don't have a lot of time, and these are topics that I think students can really get into and have a debate. So if they can root their arguments into these texts, that can make it a little easier if you're talking about something that's, controversial, or, to protect you as the teacher. Like, these are the texts and this is what the historian is saying. So we need to bring it back to the text as much as we possibly can. I'll pause there and see if there are any burning questions or anything of interest that I could show you or brainstorm with you.
Well, some people were pretty interested. So when I asked what topics are you struggling with the most, we touched on Reconstruction, but then the other topics that brought up were imperialism, Jacksonian democracy, romanticism, transcendentalism, Dred Scott, and the Japanese American internment.
Okay, so I can tell you now, we have.
I'd like you to watch what Mary does right here, because the search bar on our website is your new best friend.
Mm-hmm. That's not it. Okay, so I'm going to do school paintings. So I'm going to this idea of romanticism. So this is something, we have Walt Whitman, Leaves of Grass, and we have this idea of how art connects to this romantic, movement, and how it's, a reaction to sort of you have all of that big changes coming. So this painting is really interesting, right? Wild and free, and then it's sort of ordered landscape over here. So I think this is a really interesting entry point into the idea of romanticism and kind of getting into the transcendentalist a little bit. And again, these are images, so they should be, in theory, a little bit more accessible if you have students who are like, I don't understand what this guy's saying. But that, that could help. I'm just brainstorming off the top of my head. Internment. So we have a lot of resources on this. So we have a DBQ on internment here. So you have the document packet. Again, it's going to open up as a Google document. And I think what's really cool about the DBQs is you could do the full-blown DBQ, or you could just use one or two of the documents. And I think you could still, depending on the time and depending on your students, I think you can still do justice to that story. So again, you have, here's a list of the documents that you'll have here, and you have some of the questions to use if you want to use them. If you just want to give them the text, you can do that. So we have that resource on Japanese internment. And again, it's the primary sources. So I think whenever we can use the primary sources directly, that's a great thing. Jackson and the Bank Wars. Getting lots of, I know we have political cartoons on this. I just don't remember the name of it. I'll do this. I'm going to go to Life, Liberty, and the Pursuit of Happiness, and I'm going to just search chronologically because we have so much. It might be easier to do it this way. Here. No. I think we need to go further up. Go to 6.
And if you notice, it's like we redid our website about, was it a year ago now or 2 years ago? A year ago?
A year ago, yeah.
A year ago. We redid our website about a year ago, and we made the search function much easier. So if you're ever looking for something and you really can't find it, we actually get a ping in from the search that it didn't bring anything up, that you were searching for something and you couldn't find it. So it's very, very exciting that we have this option for all these different activities. And if you'll notice, the activities actually have a scrolling feature. So you'll see Mary looking through all the different activities. So you can either search for it, or you can just scroll around, like going into an old Blockbuster, like looking through the racks and seeing what we got there, or you can search directly for it. And that search bar not only searches the title, but the content of the lesson as well, to see, make sure that it's really touching on what you're interested in.
Mm-hmm. So this is just something, or just the changes in who's voting and what does, voting day look like. So here's another, primary source. kind of see the ruckus going on in this election. So there's definitely lots of things. I think that's kind of the fun of it too, is that we've given you some suggestions here, but just kind of scrolling through here and thinking, okay, this might work, or this is something I know I'm weak on. Could I, should I take a look at this one? This is another cool DBQ I know that we did just on Indian removal. And we have a really great one. We have several that use depictions of Native Americans in American art that I think is really interesting. We have depictions of George Washington in American art. So we've definitely tried to use things that resonate with students, art and music, where it's possible, to pull that in to help.
One of our partners on Life, Liberty, and the Pursuit of Happiness was actually Teach Rock, which is an organization founded by Stephen Van Zandt of the E Street Band. And so we have quite a few lessons in the civil rights movement about music and how music influenced culture that are very, very cool.
Yes.
Like this one that Mary pulled up right here.
Music of the civil rights movement. There's a great one on blues and the Great Migration. There's one on rural poverty and African-American culture and jazz. So there's so much good stuff here. And we have several lessons from like other organizations like the Lyndon B. Johnson Presidential Library, the Ronald Reagan Presidential Library. So, and used with their permission, George Washington's Mount Vernon. There's a really good one on George Washington's views of slavery over time, a document-based question. So it's really just a treasure trove of things that can support you in your teaching. I'm trying to think if there were other specific topics. We hit on internment, a little bit of Jacksonian democracy. I tried to get on the transcendentalists a little bit.
Yeah. And I think it's really about looking through that scope and sequence document. So that's linked in here and also on the main page on the website. And then just poking around. There are so many, 400 different separate, distinct components of this textbook, and you can access them all on our website, or if you have the ability to use a digital textbook, that will also give you access to the questions. And Elaine is saying, oh my gosh, what a treasure trove. You cannot imagine how helpful this is. So thank you, Elaine. We would not be here if it weren't for the teachers out in the classrooms doing the most important work in America, which is teaching civics right now. So we are all just honored to be able to provide this resource to you. And we're always looking for partners to help us to continue to refine and build. We publish, between 300 and 500 different activities every year. And we are always interested in what you can do with us. So please reach out. You know how to get in touch with us. You have all our emails. I'll put it in the chat though too. But thank you for spending, 45 minutes of your precious evenings with me and Mary. A big thank you to Haley, our producer, who's been on. But we're here, like I said, every month with different topics. So join us, come back. We'd love to hear from you. And this resource, Life, Liberty, and the Pursuit of Happiness, is open and available to you. You can use it through OpenStacks or on our website, and just go into that search bar, ask it what you're looking for, and I'm sure you'll be able to find something. And if you can't, let us know, because we'll design it for you. So Mary, any final thoughts or words to all our friends?
No, just thank you for what you do. This is really meant to make your life easier. So I hope that it does, and have fun exploring. And like Rachel said, please be in touch. We'd love to hear what are you missing? What do you need? How have you tweaked it? Any suggestions that you have, we really would. We want it to work for you when you're the ones using it. So let us know. Talk to us.
If it's not making your life easier, we've done something wrong. So we are here for you. We want to help you plan easier and have more time for the meaningful engagement with your students. So thank you for all that you do. BRI is here to help. We teach civics. It's what we do. And we look forward to continuing doing that with all of you. So we'll see you next time. Thank you again, and take care.
Thanks, everyone. Bye.